we're really going to have a great time in May. I'm very excited about it. Like I said, I think a couple places already sold out, and they've added days to a couple other gigs. So it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, for sure. And last thing, Billy, you mentioned Roth earlier and his connection, how you guys played with Van Halen, with Tallis and all that. I'm curious, you told the story a couple times on this show about how close you got to playing with the Eat 'Em and Smile band in LA at that jam with Roth as a part of it, all four of you. But I know at NAMM this year, I couldn't stick around to see it, but if I'm not mistaken, at NAMM, the three of you did it without Dave. Is that correct?
Yeah, we get one of the best Roth imitators I know of, Jeff Scott Soto, who does a great David Lee Roth, and he came up and did the vocals with us. We just wanted to do Dave. Myself, Steve, Greg, and Brett, our keyboard player, and Jeff was kind enough to join us, and it was an exciting, fun, blast. Actually, one of the women from the video was there. She got up and she said her line in the mic from the original Yankee Rose video. And,
wow!
We just had a great time. So we did get in touch with Dave. Unfortunately, he was in New York, but he sent a positive vibe that maybe someday.
So there is still some hope, because nobody knows what's going on in Van Halen land. There's a million rumors, that's for sure, but nobody knows what's really going on.
Many of them.
Yeah. And I mean, I know you're as big a Van Halen fan as it gets, so you're probably fingers crossed hoping that something does happen, the stuff.
Yeah, I hope it does. I hope to see Michael back in the band. That would be great. But who knows? We can all keep a little hope in our hearts that if it does come back, that I'd like to see them get along and enjoy each other a little bit. I know I hate to see when there's any kind of bad blood or any kind of disagreements up there, because after you've been together for 30 or 40 years, by that time, not much matters anymore. Just the fans love it. They want to have a great time. So let's hope something like that could happen.
Man, I'm just thinking, knowing what a VH fan you are, you had to just be like in heaven. 1980 Women and Children first tour. I mean, were you able to stand on the side and watch every night, or did you get to watch, or did you have to travel? I mean, how did you get to take all that in?
We stayed for every show every night. And I got to say, after seeing 30 or 35 shows, at their worst on that tour, at their very worst, they were only spectacular. And they were on fire. It was like a military operation. I learned a lot from that tour about how to make a go of it when you're doing live shows, and it was like getting a PhD in show business. Pretty awesome.
And didn't you tell me that at one point you actually, did I hear this right, or am I dreaming that you told me once that you actually during a sound check jammed with them?
I never jammed with them in sound check. It was with Rush. Geddy was late for sound check one time, and I got up and jammed with Alex and Neil. But I did jam around with Eddie a little bit in the dressing room, and we spent some time together. I was just such a fan of him and of the whole band. Getting to hang with him at all was a great honor, and it was just amazing to be around him. The man who changed the world of electric guitar as we know it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And you mentioned jamming with Rush. That was when Mr. Big opened for Rush. And I'd be remiss if before I let you go, I didn't ask you. I mean, I know that, when we sadly lost Pat, you had told me that you thought that would have been pretty much the button on Mr. Big. Is that still the case, or do you have plans with Mr. Big, or is Mr. Big a closed door now?
There's no plans. It's pretty much, I mean, we went out just to finish some gigs that were already booked while Pat was alive, kind of to honor his memory a little bit, but it just ain't the same without him. And I don't want to be one of the bands. Nothing against them, because you got to do what you got to do with it. When you lose somebody and then replace them and then replace somebody else, and pretty soon the only thing original left is the logo. It's nothing against bands that have to do that. I still love them, and that's great. I'm glad for them, but I just didn't feel right doing that. We may go out in a year or so, maybe 2 years, and do some shows in some capacity. But I think we did the right thing by just moving on. It was tough without him.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And I thought that, I I hear you loud and clear. I agree. As a fan, I agree with you 100% about what you're saying, and I think it's very respectful if that's the way you guys decide to handle it. It's interesting because I was at the Yngwie Tallis show at the Beacon in '85, but what I always forget is that Tallis had opened for Van Halen in 1980. So that's what laid the seeds for Dave when he went solo to call on you. That tour, when you guys opened for Van Halen, did you and Dave hit it off, or was he kind of watching from afar and it took you by surprise that he picked you off for his band?
I think watching from afar, I hung out and spoke more with the other guys in the band, with Michael, Eddie, and Alex, and but Dave was always nice and it was cool, and they were great to us on that tour. They gave us plenty of stage room. We had an encore. They'd let us take it, and it was a pleasant experience. Some people might not think it would be, but it really was. They were very, very kind to us.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I do remember there being a buzz that people had said that Roth may have been there when you guys played the Beacon with Yngwie at that time. So I am correct in saying, Billy, that Tallis was more of an upstate New York thing, right? I mean, even though you did do some national touring, it was very much you guys did huge business up there as a headliner, right?
Yeah, we did great along the New York State Thruway. It was Buffalo, or just Syracuse all day, and then up to Toronto, over to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So it was the Great Lakes area. A lot of bands. It was a huge music scene back then too, and we played all the time. We had sound truck lights. Everybody got paid. No record deal. We made our own money. A lot of bands did it like that back in the day. I wish those days were here again.
How many studio albums did Tallis do? The time, and I'm sure give you the attention and take a moment with you when you go back to see him. So send him my best, good buddy, and if you get a chance to go see the Creatures, as Trey is, be sure to do it, because John has to work all that in around all the Rob Zombie stuff and the other stuff he does too as a writer and involved in a lot of different things. Let's say hi to Lou, who's in California. Lou, what's going on?
Hi, I just wanted to ask, do you think that rock covers of pop songs can be better than the original? The best example that I know of would be Alien Anafarm's version of Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson.
Well, I think, Lou, that, and thanks for calling, I think that if you're a rock fan and you hear a rocked up cover of a pop song, you're going to naturally think that that's the better version because you're a rock fan. And if you're more into pop music, you're probably going to think the rock version is an abomination. So it's just, I think it's relative. I think that us as rock fans, speaking for me and my audience that would listen to this show, being that it is proudly an all rock talk show, I think that, of course, we're going to gravitate more to the rock versions of those songs. And you're right, Alien Ant Farm's version of that Michael Jackson tune is a great one. There was also, didn't Limp Bizkit did a Wham song, I think. Forget, was it Careless Whisper or something?
No, it was Seether. Seether covered Careless Whisper.
But Limp Bizkit did Faith, George Michael Faith. So there's been a lot of instances of that happening, like heavy rock bands doing covers of pop tunes. There's a bunch of bands that have done, there's like, off the top of my head, 2 or 3 versions of Duran Duran's Come Undone done by heavy rock bands. Done really well too. So it's happened a lot, and if you're a fan, it just stands to reason. If you're a fan of rock and hard rock, you're going to like that version better than the pop version, more than likely, if you're not a pop fan. So I just see it that way. I don't think that there's a blanket answer to that. It's just a question of your perspective, really. But it's been something that's been done a lot of times, and it's always interesting to hear what people do. I always thought it was funny that, off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember, I don't know if Hailstorm did it. I know Adrenaline Mob did Come Undone. There's like 3 people that have covered Duran Duran's Come Undone, which in heavy rock, which in and of itself is a great song, the original version. But it wasn't a huge Duran Duran hit. It kind of came a little after their heyday. So I always found that interesting too, that was the song that a lot of heavy rock bands sort of gravitated to play. All right, let's get a break in right now, and we will the time, and I'm sure give you the attention and take a moment with you when you go back to see him. So send him my best, good buddy. And if you get a chance to go see the Creatures, as Trey is, be sure to do it, because John has to work all that in around all the Rob Zombie stuff and the other stuff he does too as a writer and involved in a lot of different things. Let's say hi to Lou, who's in California. Lou, what's going on?